are covered under the Williams Treaty in the traditional territory of the Mississaugas, a branch of the Greater Anishinaabe Nation, including Algonquin, Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. These lands remain home to a number of Indigenous nations and people. We acknowledge the land out of respect for the Indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America, from before the arrival of settler peoples until this day. More importantly, we remember the history of these lands has been tainted by poor treatment and a lack of friendship with the First Nations who call them home. This history is something that we are all affected by, as we are all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect on, and each of us are affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, then it does not have to define our future. Next slide, please. I'm going to be welcoming Ali and Tim, as everybody kind of comes in today, to give a fantastic presentation from Ontario Tech Talent. The PowerPoint that they're about to present will be sent out to everybody after this workshop, so don't feel like you have to take notes, but I will pass it over to either of you to share your screen.
Sure. Ali, I think you're muted. You don't have any audio on. Oh, there you are. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Ali Poole. I'm the marketing manager at Talent. I'm here with my colleague, Tim Clayton, who is our customer success manager. We're really excited to chat with you very briefly right before your event. So who is Talent? So we're going to just give a little bit of insight of who Talent is, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we do, what we offer, and then we have a little giveaway at the end for everyone on the call. So who is Talent? So Talent is a subsidiary of Ontario Tech University. So I'm not sure if you've seen billboards or seen maybe pop-up Tim on campus, or seen some of our ads in the Ridgeback report, but we are a subsidiary of Ontario Tech University. We work to fuel the talent pipeline by providing industry-verified micro-credentials with high demand skills, so that way learners are ready for the job market. So we work really closely with our employers. We assess the skills that they're looking for, and then we develop and offer relevant micro-credentials to prepare learners, much like you on the call, or working professionals with skills that they need to prosper and to obtain that next job that they're looking for. We also help our learners communicate their skills through our digital badge, which you receive on completion of one of our micro-credentials. So here's a visual just about what we do. So the learner comes to Talent. We are then kind of that middle person who assesses and provides an education, but also assesses your skills in a real way. So you also have a assignment that you complete, we verify it, and then you are awarded a digital badge, which that can be used on your resume or digital platforms to signal your skills to employers. So here are some of our employment partners. So we're very proud to work with these organizations. These are just a few, we have many, and we work with them to figure out what they need in the market. So for instance, we're currently working with Ontario Shores. There's a big need right now for mental health nurses and professionals, and we are currently developing mental health micro-credentials for nursing staff. So we do that in all industries, and I will now pass it on to Tim to talk a little bit more about our offerings.
Sure. Thanks, Ali. So before you right here are kind of our top micro-credentials. We've identified the ones in sort of teal blue, what I think would be best for this audience here today. So courses that are in the data analytics space, as you know, are quite popular. But with those tools, you're also actually coming away with a bit of applied experience by learning a tool such as Tableau. And so we give you a real data set to play with during the course, and then that badge is a good signal then to the employer that you've got that skill once you complete. I'd also like to point your attention to our website, as well as you'll see a little bubble for some of the schools TD Nano credentials. So that's a great way for you as well to kind of build out other skill sets. So they're typically very short, 2 to 3 hours only, but they're there really to sort of augment and of course support other learning options that you might want to explore through us as well. And so yeah, feel free to check out our website. We've got 3 kind of instructional models for you to do that sort of learning with us. So one is just entirely self-paced, where you over a period of about 3 months could choose to just do the micro-credential yourself. So typical self-study type of a course, but of course you get access to the course material, and I'm there to support you as well. So if you have any questions throughout that learning, then of course you can contact me. The hybrid one, which is our new approach to learning, is where there is a skills coach. So there is somebody who is often hired from industry, so they've already got experience. They're really there to of course answer discussion questions. You can book a small meeting time with them as well. You know, and again, they're there really to weigh in on the modules and the topics that you're covering throughout the course. You also get that opportunity to do a bit of networking as well, so other learners in the course, and that's really a big value add to that sort of hybrid model. And it's a great way to learn from others with a lot of diverse backgrounds as well. So people who might be seasoned industries, but they just want to pick up one particular skill in the course, they're there as well for you to discuss with. We've also got the normal 6-week facilitator led. So that's more what I'd say is a traditional course type of model, where there is an actual class per week that you would attend. And it's also fairly condensed, so kind of 8 to 10 hours a week. 6 weeks is the objective that you would complete that course. So today we'd like to offer up for you to enter a draw, and I think the plan is that at the end of the 3-day series, 4-event series, then we will draw that. So you'll get your choice of which micro-credential, or the winner of that will get their choice of which, and also which model best fits well. So the link should be available there in chat, and feel free to enter. So does anyone have any questions about, I guess, micro-credentials in general, or what you've just seen?
Either Tim or Ali, are you guys comfortable if I share your emails in our post-workshop communication, just in case anybody does have any questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was fantastic. A fantastic overview of what Talent does. I really recommend you guys check them out. I'll send the link for the workshop, the Google form after this workshop as well, in case you guys have a chance to fill it out. So thank you both so much. You guys can stay if you want, or you can go on with your days. So we will move on to the workshop portion of this. So I welcome my IT coordinator on BitSoc here at Utku. He will be starting the workshop. If you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand and we can get those settled for you. But over to you, Utku.
So hello and welcome everyone to the first of our workshop series. A little bit about me. My name is Utku. I'm a second-year networking and IT security student. I'm also the IT coordinator of BitSoc, and I've been involved with cybersecurity for around 3 years now. I will be your instructor throughout this workshop, and the format of these workshops is going to be that I will have a presentation to start things and explain some of the concepts. I will then have a demonstration part where I'll be showing you the hands-on hacking process live. If you have any issues with the stream, with the audio, or if you cannot see something and want me to zoom in, especially during the presentation, the demonstration part, please let us know, and my moderator, Hannah, will let me know so I can adjust. Other than that, I'm planning on leaving about 10 minutes at the end for questions. So I highly encourage you to prepare your questions and ask them to me at the end. Also, I see some Netsoc executives. I see Andrew here. So if you need instant help, he can answer you from the chat. So my advice for you is to watch this presentation and the demonstration, and then set up the environment and do the hacking yourself after the workshop. The reason I'm saying this is because if you try and do things as I move along, you might miss some stuff, or you might miss why I'm doing certain stuff. So in my opinion, that's the way to get the best out of this workshop. And with that being said, let's get started. So penetration testing is basically a simulated cyber attack in order to identify the vulnerabilities on a network or an application. So your goal as a penetration tester is to find either existing vulnerabilities or new vulnerabilities and give advice on how to patch them before the malicious hackers find and exploit them. So the different types of penetration tests, there's network penetration testing, which we will mostly be covering throughout the series. There's also web application penetration testing, which involves anything web related, and we'll be discussing about that in our second workshop. There are also mobile pen testing and physical pen testing. So physical pen testing is literally going into a data center and trying to physically access an important server or an important computer. I was very surprised when I learned that there was a career path like this, because it is like a real life ninja job. So I find that very interesting. So for today's demonstration, we will be using a virtual network, and that's made possible by virtualization technology. Virtualization allows us to create virtual computers and virtual network devices using parts of the actual resources of our physical computer. So this workshop wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for virtualization, because I would have to go and buy another PC, and I would have to go and buy a switch, and that would cost a lot of money and allocate a lot of space. So virtualization makes things a lot convenient. And to create these virtual machines, you have to give the essential resources that a computer needs, such as CPU, RAM, or storage. One important note here is that you have to be very careful on how you're allocating these resources, because if you leave your host machine with not enough resources, then it will not be able to handle all of the virtual machines that you are creating. So you have to be very careful about that. So for example, if your CPU has 4 cores, you can give your virtual machine 1 core and your host machine would be left with 3. Same thing with RAM. RAM is very important. It's recommended that you have at least 8. If you have 4 gigabytes, you will run into some issues. So for example, my computer has 12 gigabytes of RAM, and if I give my virtual machine 4 gigabytes, my host machine would be left with 8, and same thing with storage as well. So common virtualization programs, actually 2 of them you might have heard of or you might have used before, are VirtualBox and VMware. They're both awesome. They're both free. Well, VMware actually has different versions, but the free one is all you need. We'll be using VirtualBox mostly throughout the workshops, and we will use VMware in the last workshop. So besides making things convenient and free, there's also another important thing that I want to emphasize on about virtualization. So back in the late 90s and early 2000s, there weren't such thing as a cyber law. So people who wanted to try their hacking skills could go into a website and hack them. And if there were no cyber laws, they would face no consequences. In today's world, that's not the case. It's not the Wild West anymore. There are cyber laws in almost every country. So if you want to hack on the internet, there are bug bounty programs, which basically are that companies basically give you permission to test their website, and they declare a scope, and they declare where you can look in the website and what kind of vulnerabilities you can look in the website. So you have to act according to the scope. But other than that, you cannot try and hack anything on the internet if you're not authorized to do so. And so let's say we want to test a software like a web server software or the new version of WordPress. What we can do to get around this is to get the software and load it up in a virtual machine inside our virtual network, and we can run our attack in our virtual network. And that way we won't have to face any consequences. So that's something to keep in mind of. So with the rise of cyber laws and the improvement of virtualization technology, people try to find new ways for people to learn and develop their hacking skills. And that's when CTFs came into the picture. CTF, which stands for Capture the Flag, is a gamified version of the penetration testing process for people who want to learn and improve their hacking skills. So they're basically intentionally vulnerable. They're created to be vulnerable so you can develop your skills and hack them. A typical CTF will have a challenge or challenges related to security vulnerabilities, and the goal is to gain access to the target machine by exploiting the existing vulnerabilities and capturing the flags, if any. Some CTFs, they don't have a flag that you get when you finish them, but that's where the name comes from. And ideally, the concept is that they are vulnerable and you can hack them. So some popular CTF platforms are two of them, Hack the Box and Try Hack Me. They're very similar. They both have a free and subscription versions. So they have training as well, so you can go and learn some stuff there. They also have vulnerable machines. So they have the vulnerable machines inside their network, and you have to connect to the network through a VPN, and you can hack those machines. There's also WalnHub, which we will, like all of the CTF challenges that we will be doing throughout the workshop are from WalnHub. Why I like WalnHub? Well, one of the reasons is it's completely free, 100%. Every machine there is free. And also you don't connect to an external network. You download the virtual machine and you can put it inside your virtual network, and that helps you develop your networking skills as well. So I like it. Pico CTF is intended for totally beginners. Again, you don't connect to anything or you don't download anything. It's a web-based, and it's a great platform for beginners. So I wanted to cover this. Why Linux? Well, it's not because Linux is better than the other operating systems. It's just that Linux has some advantages when it comes to the hacking game. So one of those advantages is that Linux is an open source operating system, and this means that the code for the operating system is public and everyone can read and suggest changes. In fact, there are thousands of developers who read and try to improve the code of Linux every day. So this helps the operating system to be more secure. And also because people know fully how the operating system operates, the developers can write better tools. So some of the common tools that we use for hacking, they're also available on Windows. So if you're just going to use those tools, then you can use Windows, all the power to you. But if you want to use some of the more sophisticated tools, then you'll have to use a Linux system. Also, reportedly, 96.3% of the web servers are running Linux. So if you are using a Linux system, you can better understand how these systems are run on the internet. So for those who don't know or have just heard about Linux right now, Linux isn't actually the operating system itself. It's the core of an operating system. And different people have taken this core and developed operating systems depending and tailored to their needs. And there are hacking-focused operating systems that use these core, the Linux core. And two most famous ones are Kali Linux and Parrot OS. We'll mostly be using Parrot OS throughout the workshops, and we'll be using the Kali Linux in our last workshop. One thing to note here is that these two operating systems, the way that they differ from the other variations of Linux is that they come with pre-installed hacking tools. So, for example, if you're using another operating system like Ubuntu, you can still use those tools, but you would have to manually install them yourself. But if you're a beginner and if you don't want to deal with any of that, you can just run one of these operating systems and you're good to go. So some of the steps of penetration testing, there can be more, there can be less. Some people classify them differently, but I've outlined them in 5. So the first step is reconnaissance, and the second step is scanning and enumeration. You can categorize the first 2 steps as information gathering, because before we try and exploit a target, we have to get some information. And depending on that information, we can have an idea of what can be vulnerable, and we can run our exploit depending on that. So after that process, after we gained all the information we needed, there's the gaining access step, where we do the exploitation. And the last 2 steps are post-exploitation steps, if you want to maintain your access or cover your tracks. We won't be discussing about the last 2 steps because you won't be needing them in a CTF scenario. There can also be an additional step after gaining access, which is privilege escalation. And that all depends on what kind of user you are after you exploit the system. So as a network pen tester, we'll focus on ports because computer ports are where data enters and leaves the device. We can categorize them as physical ports and virtual ports. We're not going to be focusing on physical ports like on the picture. We're not like HDMI port, USB port. We're not dealing with them. We're dealing with virtual ports, because these virtual ports are used when we want to send and receive data from the internet. We don't see them, and it's a good thing that we don't see them, because there are 65,535 of them. And if they were visible, the computers would still be at this space of a room. So it's a good thing that we don't see them. So to explain this concept, I want to explain it through something that you already know. So imagine a house, and imagine a house that has 4 doors. 1 white door, 1 pink door, 1 gray door, and 1 orange door. And although this makes no sense, but for our analogy, let's assume that through the white door, only you enter. And from the pink door, your family members enter. Through the gray door, your coworkers, orange door, friends. So although this would make no sense to us, that's a good analogy to understand how a computer operates. So in our analogy, the doors are like the ports, and they're not identified by their color, but they're identified by numbers. So every port sends and receives different type of traffic. So if you're using HTTP and you want to get a web page, your request would go through door number 80. And behind that door, there would be a service that deals with your request. And that service would send you back the web page that you requested from door number 80. Same thing with SSH. For those of you who don't know, SSH is used for remotely, securely connecting to a device. Port number 21, FTP, File Transfer Protocol, and so on. So thinking our house analogy, let's say that we are a thief and we want to break inside these doors. So what we can do is we can go in front of these doors and we can try a couple of different things. We can try to break in, or if it's a smart door, we can try some passwords. We can try to break the lock. There are different things that we can try. But also there is one more thing that we can do, which actually could be smarter in some case. We can learn that which company made this door and the version, and we can go and ask our thief friends to see if they had already got inside these doors. If they had found a way, then we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can do what they had already done. And especially in a CTF scenario, especially with the beginner level challenges, like I said, they are designed to be vulnerable. And in some cases, those vulnerabilities are entry points are these ports and the services that they provide. So when we're talking about the cyber world, the equivalent of going in front of the door and trying different things, or trying to find who made the door and what version it is, the cyber world equivalent of that is Nmap. So Nmap does that for us. It's a port scanner that security professionals use to detect which ports are open, which services are running on those ports, and version information. So Nmap is an active scanning tool, and port scanning is illegal if it's not authorized. So you have to keep that in mind. You cannot go to any website and do an Nmap scan. So this is an example of an Nmap output. As you can see on the left, there's the port number that we see. There's the state, which says it's open for connection, and the service that that port provides. So like I said, 22, it's the SSH service, 80 is HTTP. And on the right, we can see that behind that door, the software that is providing that service. So for example, the SSH service is provided by what is given under the version section. So after we do the Nmap scan and we find the software and the version of it, we can go and try to find exploits, and we can see if it's already been cracked, if it's already vulnerable. One way to do that is through ExploitDB. So ExploitDB stands for Exploit Database, is a website where you can go and through the search bar, you can enter which software and version you're looking for. And if it's already been cracked, if there's already an exploit for it, it will be there. One other way to find exploits is by SearchSploit. So this is the one that I will be using today. It's a command line program to search exploits from ExploitDB. And this does not come pre-installed, I think, with Parrot or Kali. So before you want to use this tool, you have to run the installation command, which is this. But yeah, we will be using this tool today, and I will show you. So we did the Nmap scan, we found the software, and we looked into ExploitDB, and we found a exploit. So how do we use it? That's where Metasploit comes in. So Metasploit is, again, a command line tool that contains exploits, payloads, auxiliaries, and it contains so much more. When you open it, it will greet you with a banner that changes every time. So that's one example of how it looks like, and we will be using it today. So before getting started, I wanted you to visualize the network that we are using. So this is all virtual, and we will have our attacking machine that is running Parrot, and this will be connected to a virtual switch through virtual cables, and we will have our target machine as well inside this network. So the switch is connected to a virtual router, and from there we can go to the internet. There's obviously, like, we'll be using the NAT network option, and there are some stuff on this side, but you don't have to know about it. But basically, for you to visualize, this is the virtual network that we have. So before going into the demonstration section, you'll see me using a command called sudo often, and I wanted to explain this a little bit. So in Linux systems, we have different types of users. We'll dive deep into this in our third workshop. And the root user is the most powerful user on a Linux system. So that means that they can do anything they want on the computer. They can run any programs. And then besides root, there are other users. And these other users, they don't have the same privilege as root. They have permissions to run certain programs, and they don't have permission to run certain programs. So as a user, if I want to run a command as root with root privileges, with root powers, I have to use the command sudo. So you will be seeing me use this command a lot. Now, with that being said, I briefly want to talk about one thing. The most important thing that the most important setting that you want to set after you configure your virtual machines is the network section. And for this demonstration, we are using the NAT network option. So for both your attacking and your target machines, you need to set this NAT network as the network option. Okay, so now let's get into the good stuff. I've switched into my Parrot machine, and the first thing that I have to know is my IP address. So in a computer network, that's how other computers know each other, and that's how they communicate. So to learn my IP address, I first open a terminal, and one command I can use is the ifconfig command. Some Windows users may be familiar with ipconfig. It is ifconfig on Linux. So when I hit enter, I can see that my IP address is 10.0.2.7. I'm connected by the ETH0 interface. So there's my IP address. And there's also another command that you can use, which I like, which is the IP address show command. So when you enter that, it gives you, again, the same information, and it also gives you the -24 CIDR notation. So this -24 means that you are on a network that is capable of having 254 devices. So that means there are 254 attainable IP addresses. And these IP addresses are given automatically, randomly, by a service called DHCP when your computer boots up. So if you have set the settings as I showed in the document that is sent to you by email, you'll see that the first 3 sections of the IP address will be the same, but the last section, the number 7, might be different. It can be anything from 1 to 254. So if it's not the same for you, if it's not 7, it's okay. Like, yeah, it's not a problem. I just wanted to clarify that. So there's another useful command to clear your screen, which is clear. And I've cleared my screen. So now that I know my IP address and now that I know my network range, I have to find the IP address of my target. So there are, again, a couple of ways that I can do this. One program that I like to use is NetDiscover, one tool, and that comes pre-installed. So to run that, I need root privileges. So I'll do sudo and NetDiscover. And if you want to get information about how to use a certain tool, there's usually an -H option that stands for help. And when you enter that, you can see the different options that you can use this tool with. So for example, you have the I option, the -R option, which stands for range, which is what we will be using right now because we are trying to find the target in our network range. So to do that, I can type in the command sudo net discover -R and my network range. So I'm on this network. So once I hit enter, it is currently scanning this network. And there are the results. So the IP addresses 1, 2, and 3, they will be there for you as well. And those devices are the devices that makes this NAT network possible. So you're not concerned with them. So besides them, there's only one other device on our network, and that should be the IP address, 10.0.2.27. So that is the IP address of our target. Now, there is also another way that you can find the IP address of your target, and that's by using Nmap. So we are going to get into Nmap, but also I want to show you one more thing. One other way on how you can learn to use these tools is by something called MAN, which stands for manual. So if you type man nmap, you will see a lot of information on how to use this tool. So like there's an example scan, and you can see the many different options. So if you're confused, you can type the man command and learn more about how to use any of the tools. So we'll go sudo nmap-help again to see the options. And again, to find the IP address of your target, you can do something called the ping scan. Pinging in networking is basically one device says hello and the other device says hello back, so you know that that device is up and running. So we can also use nmap to find our target machine's IP address. So we can do sudo nmap-sn option, and we can again we can enter the network range, and we will be getting the IP address. But while that's running, I want to show you some of the options that I use and you'll probably be using for your penetration tests. So one very useful option is the, -A option, which enables OS detection, version detection, script scanning, traceroute, and so on. So the -A stands for aggressive. So you can get a lot more information about the target and what kind of operating system it is running. There is also an option that we will be using a lot, which is the SV option. So SV is probe open ports to determine service and version info. So when we use SV, we will get information about which ports are open and which services are running and what software is running. So just like the example output that I have showed you on the presentation. So as you can see, it's the same result. We can see that this is indeed the IP address of our target. So I'm going to clear our screen now. And now to get detailed information and to actually perform a port scan, you can use the options SV for which software is running. Like I said, you can use -A, and you have to enter the IP address of your target. So when you enter this command, it is going to do, sudo nmap. Yeah, you're right. So when we run this command, it is going to give information on which ports are open, which services are running, and also operating system information. One other option that is very useful is the -T option, which stands for timing. So I think the options vary from 1 to 6, and 1 is the slowest and 6 is the fastest, or 5, I think. But you can use T4 or T5 to make your scan faster, which is very useful. And there's also another option that I want to show you, which is called script, not with capital, script vuln. So this will perform a vulnerability scan on those ports, and it will look into that software for you, and it will give you a result on if it is already vulnerable or not. So that is a very, very good option as well. But for this demonstration, we will be using this command with these options. And port scanning can take some time. So to save us some time, I've already performed the scan. The result is in here. So I'm going to show it to you right now. So I'll zoom in. Yeah, I think that looks good. So it's just like the example output that we have seen. We can see the ports that are open, the state of the ports, and the services that are running on that port. So the first port that we see is port 21. It's the FTP service, and that FTP service, that file transfer service, is provided to us by this software called ProFTPD 1.3.3c. So as a penetration tester, the first thing that we should be doing is to look if this software is already vulnerable. So to do that, we are going to use the tool called searchsploit. And we can type in searchsploit ProFTPD 1.3.3c. And once we hit enter, it will show us that this software has already been compromised. And we can actually see the code that we will be using. The path is inside our computer. So if you want to read this code, you can go here and you can read it. So we found which software is running. We found that it's already been vulnerable. And now we are going to use Metasploit to exploit it. So to start Metasploit, we can type in the command msf console. And that will be starting. And while that is starting, I want to give some information about the exploit itself. So this is a blog post that has been written back in December 3, 2010. And it says that this software has been backdoored by hackers. So what is a backdoor? Backdoor basically is a code in the source code that allows someone to remotely connect into that machine, into the machine. So as it's said in here, this software was compromised, probably with a 0-day, and hackers modified the source code and inserted this backdoor. So there is a backdoor in the source code of this software, and we are going to use this exploit that we have on exploit database to connect into the backdoor, and we will have remote access to the machine. So we have Metasploit right here running. So to find the code that we are going to be using, we can use the command search ProFTPD 1.3.3c. And as we can see, we have a matching module. That means it's this exploit on Unix systems that use FTP, and that's the name of the exploit. So to use this, we are going to use the command use. And you can either type in the full name of the exploit, or you can type in the index number, which makes it much more easier. So we're going to use 0. And as you can see, we have this exploit loaded. So right now, we are going to see the options by typing the command show options. And as you can see, we have the options of this exploit. But really important thing that this is not complete because it doesn't have a payload. So a payload is the malicious code that we are going to send. It's the malicious part of the code that will give us access to the remote machine. So to see payloads, we can type in the command show payloads. And as you can see, we have some different payload options. I like reverse shells, so I'm going to choose payload number 3. And we can set the payload by the command set payload 3. And as you can see, the payload is set. Now, when we type show options again, as you can see, we have a new section called the payload options. We didn't have that at first because we didn't have a payload. And without the payload, the exploit won't work. So right now, we have to set the options. So the R hosts here, which stands for remote host, is the machine that we are trying to connect. It says hosts because you can actually connect to multiple machines. You can type in multiple IP addresses, but because we only have one machine, we're just going to connect to one machine. So we are going to set our hosts by using the set command, our hosts 10.0.2.27, because that's the IP address of our target. And now, under the payload options, we are going to set the L host, which stands for local host, which is us, which is the attacking machine that we are using, and the IP address of that of our attacking machine is 10.0.2.7. So once we hit enter, we can again show options. And as you can see, these settings are set. So the R port here, which stands for remote port, because we're using the FTP service, we're exploiting the FTP service, it is that port that we are targeting. And under the payload options, we have L port, which is local port, and that is set as 4444. You don't have to change that. This L port is the door that data from the other machine will enter to our machine. So it can be any port. You have 65,535 options. But for this demonstration, I will be happy with using 4444. Now everything is set. To run the exploit, you can either type the command run, or you can type exploit. So once we hit enter, it is sending the exploit into our target machine. Now this may take a couple of seconds. So as you can see from the output, we have a command shell session opened, and it is from our IP address and the port we set to the target IP address and the random ports that it selects from the backdoor. So right now we are remotely connected into the machine, and we can basically do whatever we want. We have a shell connection. So one thing that I always do is I get a bash terminal. So I type in the command bin bash -i. And as you can see, I am the root user. So I have full control of this computer. To check which user I am, you can also enter the command who am I, which is very self-explanatory. And oh, who am I command is not found. Okay, whatever. Oh, because I typed it in wrong. Who am I? Root. So, like I said, we have complete control over this machine. We can type in the command ls to list the folders. And as you can see, like I said, we'll dive deep into this in our third workshop, but this is what the Linux file system looks like. So we can go to the home folder, ls. We see that this computer is used by a user called Marlin Spike. So we can enter to his directory, and we can access all of his desktop, documents, downloads, music, picture. We can do anything we want. So that's pretty much it for today's demonstration. This was a very, very simple, like the easiest CTF that you could find. We will be diving deep into some of the more complicated challenges in our next workshops. So we highly encourage you to join those as well. Right now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to open the chat so I can answer some questions. One thing that I want to note is that the instructions on how to set up the environment and the solution to the CTF that I've just done is sent to you by email, so you can follow along. Also, this recording will be published, so you can go back and watch it again. So yeah, I mean, I highly encourage you to set up the environment and do the hacking yourself. What would be the difference if we use different payloads? So like not that it wouldn't really affect you, not that you would notice. It is just that some of the payloads are written in different programs, and some of them use different techniques to establish a connection. Like for a reverse connection, your target machine connects to you. But if you want a bind connection, then you would connect to your target. So those are some type of differences, like the code language and the connection type. But it wouldn't be something that you would notify, if that makes sense. Like as long as you have a connection, doesn't matter. Is the end goal almost always to get access to the root? No. So there are different types of CTFs. The one that we have done is called boot to root. So in a boot to root challenge, the end goal is to be root. But for like if the challenge is not a boot to root challenge, like it's actually a very, very good timed question. The next CTF that we will be doing, it's not a boot to root challenge. So, I mean, the end goal is not always root, but most of the time you would want to become root because you would want to have full access to the target machine. Okay. So as a pen tester, it would be to your advantage to have good developing skills and to know how to write code and develop your own exploits, that puts you to a different level, that makes you step up. But it's not that if you cannot write code, you cannot be a pen tester, because that's not the case. There are many vulnerabilities coming every day, and many companies, many systems on the internet are, for some reason or another, they're not updating. So in the world, you can sometimes find vulnerable systems that's already been exploited and you don't have to write code. But if you can write code, you would be on a whole different level, because at that level, you can find new vulnerabilities and find 0 days. So it's an advantage, and it's a great skill to have. But the minimum coding knowledge I should say you should have is at least you should be able to understand what you're reading, because there will be many cases that you will find a software that is vulnerable, and you will find an exploit as well, but you won't know how to use you won't know how to use it. And that's when reading the code and understanding it makes a difference. Thank you. Also, besides questions, if there are any recommendations and suggestions for the next workshops, was I too fast? I don't know, was I too slow? Was I able to explain things clearly? I would very much like to get your feedback on that as well. I know that it is coming close to 6. We almost had 60 people in here, which was great. Thank you all for coming. If you have any more questions, I can stay here 5 or 10 minutes more and answer your questions. If not, you can leave. I think I've got a question. Whose system did you exploit just now? Are you asking which CTF that I've done? Suggestion: finding information by searching CVE. Okay, that's more advanced. That's kind of not the scope. The actual system, was it a random person? No. This is okay. I mean, I can show this. I'll just share my screen again. So this link is sent to you via email, but I'll show it once again. So it's from onehub.com, and the CTF that we done is Basic Pentesting 1. So this is the download link to the virtual machine, vulnerable machine that I've exploited. So if you want to do it yourself and set it up, I will also send the link through the chat. There you go.